भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar, my dear friends. This is video number 19 on Panchadasi of Swami Vidyarnaya. This video starts with part 2 of chapter 12. Topic is three notions of selfhood. There is a view which holds that the self is secondary to son, wife, etc., and it cites in its favor such scriptural text as the self verily came to be called the son, etc., that the son, etc., are principal in importance is alleged to be evident from the declarations of the Aitreya Upanishad. The second chapter of that Upanishad begins by saying that the Jiva becomes at first the vital fluid in the parent Purusha, and when the male parent entrusts this fluid to the woman, he causes the soul to be born. This is called his first birth. The parent is said to sustain the child before and after the birth, for in doing so he sustains himself for the continuation of the race, thus securing the continuation of the species. This is called his second birth. The son, when he comes of age, takes on himself the burdens of his father. He becomes the representative of his father for the right performance of religious rites. Then the father becomes aged on completion of his life's purpose, passes away and is reborn. This is his third birth. Thus the Upanishad sets forth the primal importance of a son to a father. It is because the birth of a son is considered to be supremely valuable to a father that it is said that there is no other world for him who has no son. The Vidyarnaya Upanishad states the same idea in a positive way in the passage. They speak of an educated son as being conducive to the attainment of the other world. Not only is the attainment of the other world made possible by the son, even this world is to be won through him. This world of man is to be won through the son alone and no other right. Describe the Samparti Karma, the interesting right. The Upanishad states how the worlds are to be won through the son. The right is so called because a father, when he is about to die, is to entrust his own duties to his son in the following manner. He is to call his son, "You are Brahma, you are the sacrifice, and you are the word." And the son, thus addressed, is to reply, "I am Brahma, I am the sacrifice, and I am the world." The word Brahma has reference to whatever has been and remains to be studied. The word sacrifice stands for whatever sacrifices have been performed and still remain to be performed. And the word world signifies whatever worlds have been won and still remain to be won. The significance of the right is this: the father entrusts to his son the resolve which was his of dutifully undertaking the study of the Veda, sacrifices, and the conquest of the worlds, and is freed from the resolve concerning these rights of duty, these ties of duty. The son takes on himself all this load which belongs to his father and protects him from this world. Hence it is said that a well instructed son is conducive to the world for his father. Even the derivation of the word putra points out that should any duty be left undone by father through any slip or slight omission in the middle, the son exonerates him from all that unfulfilled duty of his standing as an obstacle to his attainment of the world by fulfilling it himself, because he saves his father. By fulfilling his duties, he is called a son. The father, although dead, is immortal and lives in this world through such a son. Thus it is that he wins this world of man through his son. From all this, it is argued that scripture is evidence for the fact that the self is subsidiary to son, wife, etc. Those who uphold this view do not rest content with quoting scripture in their favor. They show how even empirical usage testifies to the correctness of their position. The son is regarded as the principal member of his family. Through sweat and toil, the father hoards money for the sake of his son. Hence, the son, etc., are more important and primary than the self. The arguments set forth above do not prove that the self is subsidiary to other things. The self can be characterized in three ways: as the secondary self, the illusory self, and the principal self. The appositional uses Devdatta is a lion has only a secondary or figurative sense. Similarly, the selfhood of son, etc. is secondary. For difference is seen of son, etc. from the self. There is difference between the psychophysical organism, which consists of five seats, and the witness self, and yet that difference is not manifest. The mind-body combination is mistaken to be the self. Hence, there is for it illusory selfhood. There is neither the existence nor the manifestation of difference between the witness self and anything else. For there is nothing apart from the self, of which the latter is the counter correlate. And because the witness is the self of all, it is called the principal self. Thus, there are three notions of selfhood: secondary, illusory, and principal. And according to the difference in empirical uses, the conception of selfhood also varies. In an empirical usage concerning any one of the three, that one assumes primacy and the other to take on a subsidiary position. For example, in the act of protecting the family of a dying person, what is useful is the secondary self in the form of son, etc. In the empirical uses, I am lean, I am going to become fat, etc. It is the body self which the illusory self that is meant. What is adequate as the subject of such assertions as through austerities I shall attain heaven is the agent self and not the body self. For a man who desires heaven performs sacrifices even at the risk of neglecting the care of his body. That which is the subject of the usage I shall be liberated, etc. is the intelligent self. Rituals and rites are of no use to him who desires release. For the instruction of preceptor and from the statements of scripture he knows the truth. Thus it is clear that the notion of selfhood differs according to the difference in the mode of empirical usage. It is analogous to the distinctions that are made in respect of eligibility for particular rites. Sacrificial rites like the Brahaspatisva are prescribed for the Brahmin and not for the members of the other caste. Similarly, kings are asked to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice, and for the merchant class the Vaisal Toma is enjoined. In the same way, it is to be understood that each empirical usage has for its content a particular notion of selfhood as the primary one, to which the rest are subsidiary. Whatever notion of selfhood is primary in a particular usage, that notion exacts supreme law. And there is also love of a lower degree to such of those things of class of not self which subserve the purpose of the self. To what is neither the son nor a subsidiary thereto, there is not even a fraction of love. Thus it is seen that the son, whatever may be the conception thereof, is the center and seat of love. If there be love for any other thing, it is for the sake of the self to which that thing is but a subsidiary. Part 3. Grades of love and happiness. What is neither the self nor a subsidiary thereto is either the object of disregard or object of disdain. For things like a blade of grass on the wayside, we have no regard while we look with horror upon such harmful beings like the scorpion and the snake. The self, we have said, is the seat of supreme love, while what is helpful thereto is the object of moderate love. There is no rule, however, by which we can characterize certain things to be helpful all the time and certain other things to be harmful. The tiger, for example, is hated when it pounces upon us. When it is indifferent to us, we take no notice of it, and when it is in a playful mood with us, we love it. Thus, we cannot fix which things are lovable, which are hateful, and which we can disregard, but we can give general definitions. Those things are lovable which are helpful to us. Those things are hated which are hurtful to us, and those are objects of our indifference which are neither helpful nor hurtful. But the case with the self is unalterable. It is always the locus of supreme love. This is what Yajnavalkya had in view when he said that for the sake of the self everything is dear. That the self is the most lovable of all is declared in the passage. This self is dearer than a son, dearer than wealth, dearer than everything else, and is innermost. While commenting on this passage, Viswarapacharya Sureswara observed, dearer than wealth is the son, dearer than the son is one's physical body, dearer than the body are the senses, dearer than the senses is the mind, but dearer than the mind and the dearest of all is the self. The nearer a thing is to the self, the dearer it is than the rest. The intensity of love that an object merits is dependent on its proximity to the self. Those who do not realize this fundamental fact and consider things other than the self to be dearer than the self meet with disappointment and finally disillusionment. They find themselves in a vale of tears, and what they regard as dear turns out to be the cause of their misery. That things other than the self are sources of misery becomes very clear when we examine, for example, the life history of a son. The parent is worried so long as son is not born to him. When a son is about to be born, there are the dangers of delivery. After the child is ushered into existence, anxiety continues to sit on the brow of the parent who is in constant fear of his darling being badly influenced by malevolent stars. When the child grows up into a boy, there is the risk of his turning to bad ways. Even after the boy is invested with the sacred thread, there is the contingence of his continuing to be illiterate, or if he becomes proficient in learning, the anxiety for getting him properly married haunts the parent. When the boy is married, there is the fear whether he would be faithful to his wife or not. If he begets children and becomes the father of a large family, there is the difficulty of finding means to provide him and his offspring with money. And when the son is provided with enormous wealth, there is the contingence of his passing away. Thus, there is no end to the misery which things other than the self being in their train. Hence, a man of discrimination must discern the defects that lie deep seated in things other than the self and cease to be attached to them. He must realize that the witness self alone is the locus of supreme love. When it is settled that the self is the locus of supreme love, it is easy to deduce that it is also the seat of the highest happiness. The self is of the nature of supreme happiness because it is the object of unexcellable love. What is not the nature of supreme happiness is not the object of unexcellable love, just as pot, etc., which are neither of the nature of supreme happiness nor the objects of the highest love. In the Taittiriya and Brihadaranyaka Upanishads, we find it declared that according to the increase or decrease in love, there is a corresponding increase or decrease in happiness. From the post of an emperor to the position of Hiranyagarbha, wherever there is an increase in love, there is also an increase in happiness. Since the self is the apex of this pyramid, it is the locus of supreme love and the seat of the highest happiness. Part 4 of chapter 12 of Panchadasi, manifestation of happiness and intelligence. The self, which is of the nature of happiness, is the witness intelligence which manifests in the states of waking, dream and deep sleep. But unlike the intelligence aspect of the self, its bliss aspect is not manifested in all the modes of the intellect. Just as the lamp, which is of the nature of both light and heat, spreads only light and not heat, even so the self, which is no doubt is of the nature of both happiness and intelligence, reveals only its intelligence nature in all the mental modes. Nor may it be asked why, if intelligence and happiness be non-different, both of them are not manifested in one and the same mode. For there is no invariable rule that where intelligence is revealed, happiness should also be revealed. In a flower, though fragrance, color, etc. reside, a single sense organ is able to apprehend only a single quality and not the rest. Similarly, it is intelligible that in a mental mode wherein the intelligence nature is revealed, the bliss aspect need not necessarily be revealed. It cannot be said that in the example of flower, fragrance is different from color, whereas in the case of the self there is no difference between intelligence and bliss. For although in reality there is no difference between intelligence and bliss, we admit that there is apparent and adventitious difference. Even in the flower, we do not recognize any inherent difference between its fragrance and its color. They appear to be different only because they are apprehended through different sense organs. In the same way, happiness and intelligence, which constitute the essential nature of the self, appear to be different because they are manifest in different modes. In that mode of intellect, which is of the nature of the transformation of the sattva constituent brought about by meritorious deeds, there is revealed the identity of intelligence and happiness because that mode is flawless and pure, and in the mode of the nature of rajas constituent, because of its impurity, there is manifest only the intelligence aspect, the bliss nature being veiled. This is analogous to the soreness of the tamarind fruit being concealed when it is seasoned with salt, because the happiness nature is not revealed in some of the modes, we cannot say that it is non-existent. Nor can we say that happiness and intelligence are not identical. We have already established that the witness intelligence is the locus of supreme happiness. So I conclude this video here. Next video number 20 will start with part 5 of chapter 12 of Panchadasi. Topic will be the two ways. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. Namaskar, my dear friends.